Welcome to lesson 2. For this lesson, you're going to make a budget in a spreadsheet. Spreadsheets are very helpful to organizing data and numbers. You can input formulas in Excel and it can auto-calculate things for you. It's much simpler than always keeping track of your budget and your expenses and your income on a calculator or in a Word document. So we're going to go over some basics in Excel, and I'm going to show you how to start to set up your budget. What we're going to do is create a cash flow analysis. So a cash flow is cash coming in, cash coming out. And studies have shown that if you keep track of that, you're more likely to spend less and save more. So when you're setting up an Excel spreadsheet, a couple of things that I listed out here that are going to be important is you want to make a list of all your inflows and outflows that you are going to be expecting to have. And that was the purpose of the first assignment when you wrote some things that you thought you might have for your budget. You're also going to want to have some columns to capture what you've estimated versus what you actually spend, so keeping track of receipts, knowing the difference. And then I'm going to show you how to format your columns and your rows and your headings to make your Excel spreadsheet more user-friendly, to make it more readable. We are going to input our monthly estimates to start off with. We're going to input formulas. I'm going to show you how to do that. And then hopefully you will revisit this each month to update it and keep track of what you are actually spending in order to compare it. So let's go ahead and go over here to our Excel spreadsheet. Okay, so I've done a little bit of a shell here just to get started. But typically, if you look at this spreadsheet and get oriented, if you've never seen this before, it's organized by rows and columns. The rows have numbers and the columns have letters, and that's how you identify cells. So here, for example, if I click in this cell, this is cell E7. So we always use the letter first and then the number. That's cell E7. If I click, that's cell C5, for example. So normally when you set up a budget, you want a heading, and you can call it whatever you want. I called this Mrs. Elliott's monthly budget. You could even put in a year. So maybe this is going to be my 2014 to 2015 budget. And again, set it up how you want. I started with my income, and then I have some fixed expenses, things I can't change, like my mortgage or rent, maybe your cell phone bill or your internet or your cable. Those are things that can't be changed. I might even put in here my water and my electric bill and just include it as an average. And then you have some variable expenses. Those are things that you can control, things that you adjust each month, like food, clothing purchases, if you go out for entertainment or for eating, maybe even the Starbucks. Those would be considered variable expenses, things that you can control. So then I've created a monthly estimate because right now I don't know. Haven't started keeping track. So we are just going to start with monthly estimates. And then I have created 12 months here, which will be my monthly actual. This is what I'm actually going to spend. And so that requires keeping receipts and tracking that information. So maybe keeping your food receipts together, keeping your gas receipts together, things like that. Then at the end, I have some additional categories which we'll go over. So first thing is, let me show you how to format some of this stuff. So up here is the area you want to look at to format. So right now I'm looking at these headings and thinking, they're kind of boring, they're not very bold, they're not very colorful. So what I'm going to do is click in a cell, hold my shift button down and highlight, select all these. Okay, so once I have done that, now I'm going to go up here and make them bold, and perhaps I'm going to change the color. Maybe I'm going to make them green. And maybe I want to center them here so I can center them. I can also change the font size just like you can in a Word document. Pretty straightforward. And then maybe I want to underline, and I don't want to underline each individual word, I want to underline the cell. So I'm going to put in a bottom border. Okay, now if you'll notice over here, things are kind of stuck together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select these cells. One option I can do is widen the cells, or I can right-click, I can format my cells, and I can tell it to wrap the text in a cell. And notice now it's wrapped in the cell. Now I still may need to widen this a little bit just so it doesn't separate the words. but maybe I don't want it so wide, so I've wrapped my text. So those are just some things you can use to format. So then under my income, maybe I just have my monthly salary. And notice it's coming in bold because that's why I formatted this whole column. So I will click on it and unbold it because I want it to be separate. And if I know how much I'm going to make, I can put in my monthly estimate. Let's just say my monthly salary will be $4,000. Okay. Notice that's, again, not formatted very nicely, so I can come up here and I can put in a comma. And I can also increase or decrease the number of decimals. So I don't want the .00, so I'm going to decrease. Now I also know that because I'm hoping that I will keep my job, that maybe my monthly salary will stay the same each month. Here's a quick trick you can do. You can either type it in there or you can highlight the cell that you're on and then hold your shift button down and highlight to the right. You can go to this edit menu at the very top, if you can see it, and then you would go to fill, and then you would go to right. And what that does is it fills in numbers or formulas that you want to the right or the left or up or down. Okay, and then I'll let you guys go ahead and fill in your own fixed expenses and variable expenses. But just for example, let's do one. So my fixed expense, let's just say, is my rent. And again, I don't want that bold, so I'm unbolding it. And for my variable expenses, I'm going to say food. And I'm going to estimate, and again, I know what my rent is, but I'm going to go ahead and put it in my monthly estimate portion. Let's just say that my rent is $2,000. But I'm going to put a minus in front because that's an outflow. That's a cash outflow, not a cash inflow. And again, not formatted very nicely, but if I go here to the comma, and then I'm going to decrease the decimal, now it shows it in parentheses, which means minus. And now I'm going to estimate my food, and I'm going to assume that I spend, so that's an outflow, that would be a minus, of $600. Again, I'm going to format it, and I'm going to decrease my decimal. Okay, now I want to, again, copy my rent to the right because I'm going to stay here, let's just say. So I'm going to go to my edit, my fill, and my right, and I've copied that number all the way to the right. So I'm going to leave most of this up to you, but what I want to end with is to show you how to put in some formulas because that's the real power of Excel. And as you get comfortable with formulas, this program becomes much more efficient for you to use. So what I want to do is I want to first find my net income. So what that means is I need to take my income minus my expenses. So I'm going to actually put in another category here that's total expenses. So what I want to do is insert a row. So I'm going to right click on this row and I'm going to go to insert and notice it gives me another row. So right here I'm going to put in my total expenses or outflow, cash outflow. So what I want to do is I want to total my expenses, which would be my rent and my food and everything in between. So one way that you can start a formula, and I would suggest using this every time, is you start by hitting the equal sign. Very important. That tells Excel you want to put in a formula. So what I want to do is I want to sum. So I would type the word sum, and notice it comes up as a function. And then I will hit a parentheses, and then all I have to do is highlight the cells that I want to sum. So I'm going to come up here, hold my shift button down, and highlight all these. Then I'll put an end parentheses. Notice it shows me my formula. I'm going to sum all the cells between C7 and C16. And it highlights it in kind of a light blue or purple. So then when I press enter or return, that gives me the sum of my expenses. Now here's a nice trick. That fill to the right, if I highlight that, hold my shift button down, and go to the right, and I do my edit, fill right, it fills that same formula in all the way across, so I only had to type it once. Now what I want to do is I want to find my net income. So what I want to do is take my inflow, which is 4,000, and I want to subtract from that my outflow, which is 2,600. Of course here, you'll notice that 2,600 is already being subtracted because it's a minus 2,600. So instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the Enter key. I'm going to click here on my inflows, my monthly salary, and then I'm just going to hit plus instead of minus, and I'm going to add my expenses because really I'm subtracting them since it's minus. So what I have is 4,000 plus a negative 2,600. When I hit enter, I get 1,400 as my net income. I'm going to use that fill right feature again by selecting all the cells that I want to fill right. I would go to edit, fill, right, and now my net income has been calculated all the way across. Notice the difference, and that's because I don't have food in any of my months yet. Now let me show you something that's kind of neat. Say that I have a car payment and I want to put that in. So I'm going to go ahead and put it in my monthly estimate, and let's just say my car payment is a $300 car payment. So I put in a minus 300. And again, I'm getting tired of formatting it every time. So if I highlight down, hit the comma button, and decrease my decimal, all those cells will be formatted the same way. Notice what happens automatically. My net income changed to 1,100. If I take out the 300, notice it's 1,400. So see how it automatically adjusts when I put new things in here. Because I have summed this whole area in my total expenses. So it will always readjust. Okay, now I want to fill my 300 over because I know I'm going to have a car payment the entire year. So I start on the cell that has the formula I want. I highlight to the right, and again I go to edit, fill, right, and notice that it puts that in there and it adjusts as I go. Excel is very powerful if you practice using it and you try some of the different functions that it has. One other thing, let's go ahead and do another total just to give you some more practice. So if I want to know the total per category, then what I'm doing is I'm summing each month all the way over to January, but not my monthly estimate. So again, equals tells Excel you're starting a formula, and remember to sum, we do sum, and then I hit my left parentheses, and then I'm just going to highlight what I want to sum. So starting here with January, and holding my shift button down helps me highlight, all the way to December, and you can see the formula is already sitting in my cell, and it's up here as well. If I like it, I hit end parenthesis and return, and it sums what I make. So in this case, I would make $4,800. I want to fill that formula down because I want it to sum everything. So I'm going to start here, hold my shift button down, highlight down, and I'm going to go to edit, fill, down, and it has now summed everything that I have here in my inflows and my outflows. Very convenient. I can do that down here as well. Just depends on what I want to do. All right, let me show you another formula before we go, and that's your monthly average. So the monthly average means you take the average of the category, so you've added up everything, and you divide by how many is in there. Well, on this one, total per category, this is 12 months worth. So if I hit equals, and I highlight the 48,000, and I hit the backslash for division, and I put a 12 under there, if I take the total divided by 12, I'm getting my monthly average. And again, I can take that and I can fill it all the way down by going to my edit, fill, down, and it has filled that down all the way, and I've now figured out my monthly average. Finally, if I want to figure out the difference from the actual, I would take equals, I would click on my monthly average, and then I would hit the minus key, click on my monthly estimate, and hit enter. And in this case, it's 0. There is no difference. But as you keep track of your expenses each month, you may very well have a difference. Okay, that concludes our introduction to Excel, and it's going to be up to you to develop the kind of spreadsheet that will work for you. Be creative and work on your formulas. If you have any questions about formulas, please send me a note. I can send you a short screencast on how to do it, but you should take advantage of Excel's power and make sure not to type in things by hand, but use formulas whenever possible.